Welcome back, fifth graders, to lesson 6.4, Common Denominators and Equivalent Fractions. Please write the title and today's date. Let's move on. On this slide, you do not have to write the word problem, but please make sure you write down the notes that are in red. Sarah planted two 1-acre gardens. One had 3 sections of flowers and the other had 4 sections of flowers. She plans to divide both gardens into more sections so that they have the same number of equal-sized sections. How many sections will each garden have? Right now we need to find a common denominator or a common multiple of 2 or more denominators. And our two fractions are 1/3 and 1/4. So the denominators are, we have 3 and 4 in the following fractions. Let's move on to the next page. One strategy on how to find a common denominator is to multiply the denominators. So we take 1/3 and 1/4 here, write it down. We take the 3 and the 4 and multiply it. What's 3 times 4? 12. So you multiply the denominators. Then we will rewrite it over here in this section. Write the 1/3 first, then the 1/4 below it. Put the equal signs in the middle, and we rewrite the 12 right next to it. And we will find equivalent fractions, fractions that are equal to. Now we will find the equivalent fraction to those two. So whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So what times 3 equals 12? We know 3 times 4 equals 12. So 1 times 4 equals 4. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. The next fraction, 4 times what equals 12? 4 times 3 equals 12, so 1 times 3 equals 3. So you can see here that we have equivalent fractions to the original fractions. Both gardens will have how many sections though? 12. That's the answer to the original word problem. Let's move on to the next slide to learn another strategy. Another strategy is to use a list. Make a list of the first 8 non-zero multiples of 3 and 4 of the original fractions from the word problem, 1/3 and 1/4. So I'm still using the denominators, the numbers that are in the denominator's place. So let's list the multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. Do we have 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more. 24. Now let's list the multiples of 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. 32. Now let's look at the two lists. Let's circle the common multiples. Now I see on the top and the bottom of the two lists, I see the number 12. They are the same. And the numbers 24. They are the same. Now let's move on to the next slide so we can move on to the next step. So in this slide, please write the fractions exactly how you see it. I divided it down the middle. We will find equivalent fractions to the original one. So you can see I wrote down the 12 right here, the common multiple, and I wrote down the 24 on this side. So whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 3 times what equals 12? We know 3 times 4 equals 12. So whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 1 times 4 equals 4. Let's do the one below, 1/4. 4 times what equals 12? 3. So whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 1 times 3 equals 3. So these fractions are equal. 1/3 to 4/12, 1/4 to 3/12. Now let's move to the right, to the purple one. Same thing. Here was another, that was a common multiple, so we wrote it as a common denominator. And these fractions are also equivalent. 3 times what equals 24? 3 times 8 equals 24. So whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 1 times 8 equals 8. 8 24ths is an equivalent fraction to 1/3. 4 times what equals 24? 6. So whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 1 times 6 equals 6, so 6 24ths. So the garden can have 12 sections like our previous problem or 24 sections. Let's move on to the next slide. On this slide, please write down all the following notes. Find the least common denominator of 3/4 and 1/6. We're going to use the least common denominator to write an equivalent fraction like we've been doing in the previous slides. Step 1 is to list non-zero multiples of the denominators. So what are the multiples of 4? Let's sing them. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. So now we will find the multiples of 6. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. Now between the two lines, between the multiples of 4 and 6, which one is the least common denominator? What two numbers do we see that are the same? Right here. I see the 12. That's the least common. There are two that are the same, like the 24, of course, the 12 and the 24. However, we need to find the least common denominator. Now let's move on to the next slide. So the least common denominator of 3/4 and 1/6 is 12. So now we will find the equivalent fractions for it. We will put the 12 as the common denominator, and whatever we do to the top, or the bottom, we do to the top. So 4 times 3 equals 12, so 3 times 3 equals 9. 6 times 2 equals 12, so 1 times 2 equals 2. So 3/4 is equal to 9/12, and 1/6 is equal to 2/12. These are known as equivalent fractions. Let's move on to the next slide. Here are your practice problems. 5/12, 2/9 for number 1. For number 2, 3/8, 5/6. The directions say to please use a common denominator to write an equivalent fraction for each fraction. So you need to make sure you find the multiples of 12 and 9. You have to list them. And here, 8 and 6. Thank you so much and have a great day.